and welcome to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show. We have one champion crowned in 2025 Pro Motocross, but not two, because Championship Day, I should say, did not quite pan out as expected, but that gives us a little something to look forward to this weekend at Budds Creek, the Pro Motocross finale. But of course, that is not the focus on this episode of the Vital MX post-race show, as we're going to break down all things Unadilla. And truth be told, there isn't so much. It wasn't the most exciting day of the season, but that would probably lead us down into some nice nooks and crannies. And we can do that thanks to the support from Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Motorex, Jo Shimoda, and Fox Racing. Thank you once again to for all that those companies do to support this show, the sport at large, and everything that we do on Vital MX. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, joined by Michael Lindsay. How is it going for you today?
Fantastic. I'll bring it up some point on the pod, but I definitely feel for the riders that are still Cali-based. We always joke every year that Unadilla's a fun travel day. I think 11 and a half hours later I got home, so it's great times.
Well, Unadilla is definitely, I was saying this to someone at the weekend, Unadilla is definitely the most remote race on the American schedule. And I honestly, okay, you can count Indonesia because it's far travel, and I don't know how you really classify remote, but I don't know if there's a GP as remote as that. As far as like travel to the hotel, like Latvia, for instance, you have to drive 55 minutes to the track each day because there's no hotels closer. But you're in a city at that point, you're in the capital. So like it's somewhat of a compromise. Whereas you drive 45 minutes to the track at Unadilla and you're still in, well, speaking of GPs, I actually stayed in Rome this weekend, but it wasn't the Rome that I had come to expect. It was actually quite a letdown by Rome standards.
Didn't live up to
But yeah,
the
remote
classic.
as hell. Like I found myself thinking a few times over the weekend, it would be a bloody disaster if you tried to host a Nations at Unadilla nowadays. Well, like it would literally be the world's biggest fall down.
It's funny, though, because you look at the photos of when they held, when was the USGP there? 87? It was really big. Like, turnouts were huge, but I mean, different era and types of camping. The property size, I argue, is big enough. Like, if you go out to the camping areas, like, they could host it from a physical area standpoint. But yeah, from a standpoint of having enough facilities nearby, it's a hike. I think I chose the weirder route of going back to Syracuse every day, so it's an hour and a half each way. I know it sounds minor, but I think about this when we're going back and forth, and feel like this is also why this is the round that I find the most riders try to rent motorhomes, bum sleeping with another guy, maybe it's got extra bed in their motorhome, something like that, just because it is day after day, just a grind to go back and forth, and these guys are looking for every bit of recovery, especially because you're deep into pro motocross. Like, I was talking to one of the Kyers and doctors that go to all the races, and I mean, you hear it more and more from like a G and Navarro and those guys that take care of these guys, and they're like, these schedules are gnarly, this travel's gnarly, these guys are all on the verge of burning out and getting sick, and then you add a race like this pretty late in the season, you're like, yeah, this is a lot. I don't think it would feel as bad if it was maybe the second round, but when it's this late in the season, it's a little much.
I would, I mean, this is completely random and would never happen, but what you said there about renting motorhomes, in like Chase's situation being ruled out of Unadilla quite late in the day, I feel like he could have gone around the paddock at Ironman or sent texts and been like, hey, I'm going to send my motorhome, it's going to the highest bidder, and probably made a nice chunk of change.
That's what Anderson did. So Kitchen's in his motorhome, and somebody joked to me because, Anderson's out, so Levi starting, I think it was at Washougal, is using it because Anderson has to pay his driver anyway, so I think he's charging Levi for that, plus what it cost him to have the thing laying around. He's getting some money off that. Again, you're all the way back east. You probably could have set the price, and somebody would have paid it. Roxon comes for one pro motocross race and has his bus come all the way from California for it.
Yeah, that did.
It's going to go to Charlotte and sit for a couple weeks, no big deal, but still a great example of how much those guys value this race.
Yeah, for sure. Unadilla, though, once you get there, is spectacular. It's definitely, I think, of all of the tracks when I visited them for the first time, I think Unadilla had the most wow factor. I don't even know if you'd call it wow factor, but just a lot of the tracks are actually smaller than they look on TV, whereas Unadilla is the complete opposite for whatever reason.
The thing I enjoy about Unadilla is, again, that even though that drive's gnarly, you're just out there. You're hitting a couple one stoplight towns right before it. Hell, as I even joke, you almost hit the Amish. Every single day I go back and forth, I see 4 or 5 horse and buggies on the road. I almost actually hit one in my semi in 21 at like 10 o'clock at night. That was scary. You're just kind of meandering this road, and you pop up on that valley, and you just see motorhomes in the track. It just kind of, you come over a rise into it, and it has just a very nice appeal when you show up at it, unlike a lot of the other rounds where you kind of have to meander into the property. You just pop up kind of on it from the road. So it does have a cool vibe. I complain about the travel. I know we all do to an extent, but every year I do actually go there. I walk around. I'm like, I'm kind of glad I came.
Yeah, and you say that Unadilla has a lot of appeal, but it didn't really appeal to the riders on this occasion. It was harder than normal, certainly dustier than normal, not as rutty as normal, which, to be fair, is what the riders do request a lot of the time. They want it to be less rut cross and there to be more room to move around. I don't know if it was because they expected more rainfall on Friday night. I know that actually earlier in the week, there was a lot of rain scheduled for during the races, so maybe it was anticipation of that, or maybe it was just a conscious decision to give the riders somewhat what they want. But it didn't seem to pan out by popular opinion. I'm not sure that I found anyone who liked it. At most, I found someone who was kind of, could have taken it either way.
The only rider who I actually heard said they were stoked on it in a way was Tomac during the press conference, because he admitted he's like, I like a hard pack and edgier, and he said he has struggled at Unadilla in the past. He was the only rider I ran into that was like, okay, I kind of dug it today. I think if the dust wasn't as bad, maybe it would have been a little bit better balance. But also, I think they probably would have mentioned on the broadcast. I feel like they tried to mention around the facility. One big hang up on the quality of the track was they had a Loretta's regional about 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. It was one of the last regionals before Loretta's that's in the schedule. They had like torrential rain. Like, the event got completely canceled, and according to them, they've worked for years to get better topsoil mixed into that track. Because you go back to like the early 2000s and late 90s when it was really rocky, because the track started out in the 70s and the 80s really good. A lot of the topsoil left. It got very hard packed, got very rocky over the years, and then they've worked really hard to bring good dirt in and mix it in, and we've gone the Rutto Cross. The rain they got for the Loretta's regional was so bad. I think it was like 3 or 4 inches in 30 minutes, something ridiculous. They basically said it washed away all the good topsoil, like down into the bottom and everything. They really, to get it ready for this event, they said was a rush. They had a truck and a lot of dirt just to get it to the quality that we saw it. And kind of listening to, there was a track talking to Pia, I think they sounded like they know they want to do more work to get it better again. But then add that into what you said. I think they were expecting rain on the schedule, and they've had it so bad, kind of come out of nowhere. They decided to leave it alone. But I think my biggest takeaway is, like you said, we've kind of had this back and forth with riders over the years of, all the AMA tracks are just soaked. They're rut cross everywhere. You're in one rut from one section here. Let's get them drier. We've seen that with Hangtown a little bit the last 2 years. You're able to move around a little bit more. And I've always wondered, like around like Unadilla, like, okay, we go more hard pack. Is it going to change the racing that much? Is it going to make it easier because it's not so technical? Take 450 Moto 2, 10th place was 1 minute and 30 seconds down. That's pretty much the average it's been almost all season. Usually we're 1 minute and 20 to 1 minute and 45 seconds down for 10th. So it didn't really change anything. Shocking. Good dirt bike riders are good dirt bike riders, and the ones that are better are still better.
No, but to be honest, I find that disheartening to a degree, because I do want there to be some diversity in the tracks and therefore the results. I understand that Jett is 9 times out of 10 going to be the best rider anywhere you go. That's, in my opinion, an anomaly. I would think that behind Jett there would be more of a shake-up. And maybe, maybe that's why RJ was exceptionally strong at points on Saturday versus other rounds. Maybe there were small examples, but I still would have expected more of a... Not a shake-up, but just a little more difference in the results. So maybe we're just not destined for that. Or maybe it doesn't come down to track condition. It comes more down to track layout and not being so fast and flowy as every track in this series is. Maybe that's it more so than prep.
I could agree with that, because I think you take like a Unadilla is already a very fast track. And again, we go to whether it's Rut City or Hardpack, it's still flows very well. A lot of speed around that track. Yeah, to your point, disheartening is a great way to label it. Because I've looked at certain rounds, and again, some riders have complained, but I visually like the look of going back to a Hangtown when it's not super rutted, because it reminds me some of the more of the GPs, especially if you have a hard pack track that's a little tighter where there isn't as much momentum. Because I feel like, you get the guys stuck in the ruts for a long time, and you're just kind of waiting for one of them to make a mistake. But when you have a little bit more hard pack conditions, you at least get a feeling of a race as the guys can switch back and forth, and you get a little bit more closeness, separation. Then they come back together, and it even if they aren't exactly trading places, it kind of feels more like racing, like something's going to happen. So to have the big condition change for Unadilla and not really end up with a different outcome is, to your disheartening. I'm like, man, I would have expected different.
Well, to an extent, we did have a different outcome, because for the first time since Millville, all of that time ago, almost a lifetime ago, Jett Lawrence is a winner again. I don't even know how he would have survived that drought of 2 races, made worse by the 2 weekends off. It was a 4-week drought for Jett Lawrence. He was probably beside himself with sports psychologists and therapists and all that he could possibly imagine. But he was back on top, dominant day. There was a lot to dive into with his lap times, his sector times. We'll get to that. But obviously the headline is he has clinched his 2nd 450 Motocross Championship, his 5th 450 Championship already. We've got there extremely fast. And as per usual with Jett, there perhaps aren't enough superlatives to describe him as a rider, and we've also used a lot of them. So I don't quite know where to go with this discussion other than Jett is superb. He was destined to win his championship from round 2. I think some of us were already there at round 1. After round 2, I think most people were there. And yeah, he's brilliant, and we're going to be having this conversation time and time again, without doubt.
Literally, there's not much to say. We know their whole backstory, but in the moment, it's not a championship of adversity or any storyline. It's just the guy's amazing. Straight up, he's amazing. There's not a lot to label off other than, another one to the tally. And it is interesting. Somebody like him, it hasn't come easy, but the results are stacking up. I don't know. I think you talked about this a little bit, and you can touch on it after. I think you have some more comments on Jett, but also touching on riders that win titles and some of the emotional reaction. He had some good reaction on the podium, but some of these guys are such machines. Like, I feel for him also. I'm like, man, just moving on to the next one.
Yeah, I actually talked about that with Hunter, not Jett, after the race, because honestly, I completely wrote off interviewing anyone at HRC, even down to Lars, because I just presumed that it's going to be pandemonium. I don't know.
Pandemonium.
It's going to be a P
oh God,
word.
now you've got me.
It's going to be a P word over at HRC. You're not going to be able to get anywhere near anyone. Yeah. It's going to be chaos. But in fact, there was a little bit of music playing, but it was business as usual.
Bikes got tore down, tents got put away. There was a little bit of champagne, a little bit of photos, but
in fact, and I think I kind of want to say this just credit to Jett, because this says a lot about him as a person, and I think we need to do a better job of showcasing that. I tried to interview Jett last week. He didn't want to do it because he was in such a bad mood over the penalty, understandably. And he said to me, next week you'll be the first interview I do, I swear. And I just yeah, okay, whatever. There's no way you remember this, whatever.
Yeah.
This week, I thought about that in the day, and I was like, oh, maybe. And then I was like, oh, no, he's going to win a championship. No chance. I happened to be walking past HRC, and I think Jacob came and got me, and he was like, Jett wants you. And I was like, at this point, I forgot. And I was like, why? I was like, okay. So I went with Jacob, and Jett was like, I didn't forget, you're the first interview I'm doing. And I was like,
that's cool.
But I was like, well, I think, I even said it to him. I was like, just simply, that says so much about him as a person that he remembered the promise he made, a dumb promise, because realistically, what does media or me or anything matter? Like, the fact that he remembered that through the championship, speaks to your point about it being so clinical and methodical and everything at this point is routine. But also, it says a lot about him as a person, I think. And I think it's important to showcase that, because we've said so much about what a great rider he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel at all like this isn't to bring an echo, but I kind of had this feeling a little bit. as we moved into the era of the SMX playoffs, and we've talked about this, our sport is unique for having so many championships in a year because it can sometimes, we just move on to the next thing, and sometimes it's hard to remember and celebrate. Like right now we're talking about Jett, like, hey, by the way, Cooper Webb won the Supercross title this year in the 450 class. But with Pro Motocross being butted up right into SMX as well, I don't know. It feels a little bit odd right in the middle. Like, of course, Supercross has the flair behind it. It has the showmanship a bit. You ask most guys, that is the title they would prefer to win. Then you go through the Pro Motocross title, which in the past has been cool because you win it and then you go into off season or you go into destination or something. But that's the last title kind of won, so you kind of sit on that through the off season a little more. But now we go right into SMX, so again, just that kind of business as usual. You're somebody that picks this up. It's like, well, okay, on to the next one that's got the really big money here in a couple of weeks. It's only 3 of them in 3 races.
Well, this actually was where I was going with the Hunter thing before I went down the interview tangent. I said to Hunter about there not being much flair around championships being won and whatnot. And then I said, I guess that'll be SMX because he was mentioning how they're going into another championship. And he was like, no, to be honest, win or lose, the end of nations is like that's finally when it's time to release. He said even SMX, no matter how it goes, when that final round finishes, the thought process immediately goes to Monday and getting back to work. And yeah, it's a bizarre part of the sport in America, and again, I'm not exactly well versed in other sports and what happens, but I think it's very unique to this sport in America because it certainly doesn't happen in motocross elsewhere, but I don't think it really happens in other sports elsewhere. And I think it also could be something that maybe SMX does indirectly fix to a degree, because it could tie the whole thing together where it takes us away from this sort of awkward phase where we're celebrating Jett whilst talking about how he needs to go out at Charlotte and beat everyone.
Yeah. Well, I will say, before we get into that point, like one of them, you've talked a lot about, kind of the showmanship, the national anthem on the podium, a few things like that. And I do. Okay, so like, for instance, running around shooting photos, I was kind of thinking towards the second, well, okay, where do I need to be? And there was a part of me, like everybody's, kind of went over towards gravity cavity finish line and thought, okay, are we going to see Honda crew here? Are we going to see champagne? Are we going to see flags? And I was like, okay, nobody's here. Jett's just going to cross the finish line, fist bump, and go to the podium. And as the podium areas change, everybody kind of does the celebration behind it. It does, I mean, some of that, like, of course, Supercross, it's very hard to do it all on track in a sense, but Pro Motocross has that space where I would love to see the response between the series and the team. Like, don't push them directly to the podium. Let's get the whole team and crew in there right where they get off the track. Like, let's get the smoke bombs. Let's get the flags. Let's get the championship banner. I don't know, just something. Like, I'll be honest, other than his visual reaction on the podium, like I'm thinking back to like the materials we even have to talk about these storylines. Yeah, I have photos of him where he's clearly won the title. He's got the plate. He's got the trophy. But you don't have the team, like, even after the wins, like one of them, when the guys are there, like something I missed that's like the F1 thing, it's different where the guys run up, to the sidelines, all the mechanics pick them up for a second kind of thing. Like some of those things that are really memorable, and we don't have that.
Yeah, to be honest,
it kind of sucks.
Even looking at I wasn't at the podium, but looking at the photos of Jett on the podium, like quite animated and obviously very happy, I'm almost like, oh, is that the same guy? Yeah. Because the guy who I saw by the time I got him in amongst it was, again, very clinical, methodical, and whatnot.
And that was a split second. We all have those. So you see him doing he does it twice, and he kind of does it. He always does like a big, like roar kind of thing. He did that with the number 1 play in the Red Bull, and then he did it one more time, and then he went to a very like professional, very calm, cool, collected way. Walks off the podium with the stuff. The team has the shirts on, and they just all kind of go back to chit-chatting, and Jett goes back to telling his brother how he almost died 5 times in some section. He was talking to his bird, being all animated, but like everybody's just very cool, calm, and collected, and it was like, okay, we got some cool stuff from this, but I was like, man, this is... I'll never know. Of course, none of us never know what it's actually like to go through that. But I see that, and I'm like, man, I just feel like there's something missing here.
Yeah, well, we got to fix it, and it's easily fixable.
Literally, yeah.
I think it's one of the more easily fixable elements of the sport.
I was going to say one last one is SMX. Like I talked to a couple like team, like not one manager and one of them it's like a racing director, and we were talking about SMX and a little bit of the showmanship is like I saw that a little bit the first year with like particularly the LA round I thought was really good for that in the Coliseum. Like I thought like some of the celebration afterwards was pretty decent, and coming down the Parasol and the way it lights up, like some of that was kind of cool. Like I want to see more of that.
Yeah, without doubt. And I think it's harder to do at pro motocross because that's especially grassroots compared to the other disciplines. But there's room to work with. And there's also room to work with Jett Lawrence on track. A couple of his highlights, let's say, that really stood out to me from Unadilla. First moto, he had the lead, and from laps 7 to 9, Hunter and Eli both took seconds out of him for whatever reason. And on lap 9 specifically, Eli did a lap time that was the fastest of the race at that point, but also 2 seconds faster than Jett on that lap. So at that point, I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. Like, Eli's found something. We're about to have a race on our hands. The very next lap, Jett responded with the fastest lap of the race, which was almost a second faster than the lap Eli just ran, and essentially shut everything down.
Yeah.
And it was just yet another reminder that we rarely see full Jett Lawrence, however you want to define that. And I think it was also a reminder that those small lightning in a bottle moments like Chase and Jett on the start straight last week, where we get to see Jett Lawrence, the raw racer, we should probably celebrate more because realistically we don't see that often because he doesn't need to use it often. And then on a similar note, second moto where he made, well, first of all, his passes for the lead in both motos were just unbelievably good and brilliant. That's clear. Second moto, he made that pass under the bridge coming up towards the finish line. And I felt like he looked really good there. He was going a bit more outside than everyone else, so I decided to check it afterwards. In Moto 2, he had the 7 fastest sector times on that part of the track. And they all came from laps 1 to 7. So ultimately, at lap 7, he went, okay, I'm good now, I can back it down a bit. But when he was on, quote unquote, he was tenths faster in that part of the track from laps 1 to 7 than anyone. And it's just stuff like that where it's like, I don't know how you answer that, and I don't know how you beat that. So, yeah, I thought that was the highlights, let's say.
Well, it goes back to a couple times Jett got asked earlier this year in press conferences, and, the way he would answer it, I saw some people wonder if he was almost, he doesn't come across as cocky, but some people were like, oh, they would ask him about pushing and his pace and if he had more in the tank, and he would always kind of laugh it off and be like, well, if I had more traction I could push a little harder, but I could, but it's a little scary, or like I don't I can push harder here, but it's gonna bite me, or so. Like he would just say stuff. Not, again, some people who just, I would say more flat out, don't like him, take it as, oh, he's disrespecting the guy saying go faster. Well, he's proven it time and time again. These moments happen and he has something in the tank pretty much always to respond. It's very rare to look at his 450 career and see moments that he can't respond or just can't execute at such a high level for little spurts here and there, and do stuff that even near, whether we're talking about Eli, whether we're talking about his brother Hunter, whether we're talking about moments with Chase, like some of these moments are just insane that he can pull out. It does make me wonder always, like, we think of these top level guys and how they are getting the best out of the bike, the best out of the equipment. Jett is one that truly baffles my mind sometimes, of like, how much faster could he go if the tires were better, if the suspension better, if certain things like the connection to the ground, if there was just more trust, like how much is really humanly possible kind of pops in my mind with him. Because, in contrast to that, maybe those magical elements would actually level the playing field, because maybe Jett is getting so much out of his situation that there isn't much further to go, but the other guys who maybe need to lean on comfort more, those magical items would actually bring them closer to Jett rather than bring Jett further away from them. Obviously a completely ridiculous conversation and debate, because we'll never know, but it could be possible. It's just fun theoretics. But
one magical item that is possible for everyone, including Jett Lawrence and you listening, would be the exhaust systems at yoshimura-rd.com. Yes, another championship for those guys over there, and you could contribute to their championship total as well by heading to, once again, yoshimura-rd.com to see all that is available for your motorcycle. And I've said it a few times, but I think the sheer number of options on that website will surprise you. So I encourage you to head over there in celebration of Jett's title, in celebration of a Yoshimura 1-2, 1-2-1, if you want to count the 250 class. And yeah, see what is going on for your bike. Thank you to them, of course, for their support. There isn't much to say about Hunter other than a great day once again where he was clearly the second best rider. And I think we alluded to it last week, how he's had a lot of 2-2 days or 2-1 days or 1-2 days. And it just so happened to work out for him last week overall win-wise. This was another week, same moto scores, but it didn't quite happen. But despite him not being top of the podium, I think it was still a fantastic day once more. Just a shame that okay, he can't claim to be the fastest rider in the series, but he can't even claim to be the fastest Lawrence in the series.
The fastest Honda rider, the fastest Lawrence.
It's a tough go.
It's funny. There's a little bit of a debate going on the forum, and this one makes me scratch my head because people, of course, have commented about like, what if he was the A rider for another team and this and that, and I just like, I don't know. Everything's just so perfect the way they have it. It would be the oddest thing in the world to ever see them on separate programs in any shape or form. It is weird. Like it's that, you know how it is with Hunter. Like days like this particularly make me kind of, I'd love to hear you say a bit more what you talk to him about, because like, yeah, some of the stuff, like I feel bad because I know so many people do it. You go up to him and it's like so much stuff gets referenced towards his brother and gets referenced towards his brother's title and this and this and this. And it's like, I want to talk to Hunter, but it's kind of the same conversation. Like he's riding phenomenal. He's doing great. It just sucks that his brother's a bit better. Is better.
I wonder if you could read a lot into, and I'd be interested, I'm not just specifically talking about us or anyone in particular, but I think if you listen to the questions that get put to Hunter in interviews and press conferences and whatnot, and then compare them to the questions put to Eli and Chase, I feel like the questions that go to Eli and Chase about Jett are much more like, you're going to get there, how? Whereas I feel like with Hunter, it's much more like, isn't he just better than you? Sucks, huh? Just got to give it up to him. Like, it's funny, maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like subconsciously none of us give Hunter the credit he deserves, when realistically, that second moto, he was pushing Jett as hard as anyone could possibly push Jett. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because we look at that and we go, well, he's not going to pass him and cross the line because they have this unspoken rule or whatever. But I do think that subconsciously, a majority of people, maybe including us, don't give Hunter the credit or even his piece of the pie. I don't know.
Yeah. It kind of comes back. I asked him, I don't know, halfway through this season, can't remember how I termed it to him, but I basically brought up, I'm like, the whole, I'm sure it's weird just having people talk to you about how good your brother is on the race weekends, this and this. And I asked him, I said, how, because that whole, like, how do you get there kind of thing, I was like, what is it actually like for you two during the week? And, he said he kind of, at first he's like, oh, it's way closer during the week. I have my days. He has his days. But then he kind of made a joke. He goes, based on how good my brother is on race day, he goes, I think that he's, sometimes I swear he must be sandbagging me during the week. But then he kind of admitted to that just constant thing we talk about. Jett just has something in the can. He said, well, even when it's like my day during the week, he always just has something he can make happen, kind of thing. That's gotta be, it's funny because for Hunter, just every day working together with him, I feel like it's got to pay off for him eventually, and I don't want to say it's going to happen to him in a way of like if Jett runs into some issues during a season or rise, but like Hunter keeps progressing right there with him. Like I said, he's so close. Like I thought about it after the race, seeing it, and I'm like, wonder when one of these is going to be HJ's. Like, when is it going to be his?
I think that the most interesting element will be not Supercross, because I don't think we're there yet, but in a situation like this, let's say Jett goes out in outdoors and it's Eli, Chase, Hunter, and it's time to watch Hunter kind of turn these 2-2s into 1-1s consistently, and whether he can do that, and what the dynamic's like, and how he races, and if he races differently, if it's the way he presents himself is different. Like, that's what I would be curious to see, but obviously we don't want that to happen, because that would mean something would happen to Jett, to be clear. Yeah. Moving down the order to Tomac, another third place, his third in a row. Truthfully, kind of his spot right now. The only thing I really want to highlight is going back to that jet stat from the first moto. Yes, on lap 9, Eli turned up the speed a lot and put in one heck of a lap time, and he looked incredible. But for whatever reason, in the laps that followed that, he lost the toe, lost the pace, and couldn't quite rediscover it. Now, I know he said on the podium after the first moto that he just needs to figure out those last 4 or 5 laps, but I would be curious to know what happened on those last 4 or 5 laps, because if you compare lap 9 to the laps that followed, there's no similarity there at all. It almost looks like something happened to him, which is bizarre. Yeah. But maybe it again points to the fact that Eli has it in him. He can go as fast as Jett, sure. Doing that consistently and maintaining that is the difficult part. So maybe it is just that.
Yeah, and I wonder always at this point, is it Father Time catching up to him a little bit? Is it just that little bit of, peak era that Jett's in versus him on fitness? Is it a little bit? It sounds like we're going back to it too much, but I mean, there is some truth to the fact that until getting through this season, he's had very little time on this exact platform in outdoors, and it's not as good of an outdoor platform as the bike he won the last outdoor championship on. Part of it's like, okay, is he hanging? Does he put everything into it and it just kind of gets away from him at the end of the motos? Because I will say it's gone better the last couple rounds, but I can't say that I watch Eli very often lane the motos and think like that bike looks really good right now, because it kind of doesn't a lot of motos towards the end. So yeah, I'm curious as we evolve into next year, bike and team change will kind of put a weird part into that. Like, does it come from that? Is it just, like I said, it's a little bit Father Time and injuries catching up to him, and he's got to find a way to break through just personally for those last couple laps, or can a change of scenery and bike help him get through those last couple laps he needs to stay in the fight, as he feels like. The hard part, though, is like, I know he's been positive with it, which is kind of shocking, I will say. Like, I mean, good. I'm stoked that he's not just like miserable getting third, in the sense of I still love, like, yeah, it's not the dominant Eli in outdoors we've had before, but it's great to have Eli. He's such a fan favorite, particularly as career goes on. But again, as just having him like seem pretty mellow with that, being happy with those thirds, and him saying, "Oh, if I can get a couple more laps, I can stay in the battle." Well, it's one thing to get those couple laps to stay with them. I want to see then what happens, because that staying with Jett and Hunter right to the end is one thing, but then actually being able to execute is going to be a whole nother.
I was surprised on press day he was really quite adamant that he wants to win, or wanted to win, one of the last 2, now obviously the last one. And he was very aware that he hasn't gone winless in outdoors since 2011. And even I said to him, like, at what point do you give up on this goal and focus on SMX? And he was like, I think I can do both. Like, there was no sense from him that, like, I'm letting outdoors go and I'm good with it. It was very much, I need to get on the top step, and soon, because this isn't acceptable. It's just crazy that we're in a position where even second overall would be an improvement, because he's not been there in quite some time.
I'm just mind blown if, I came to you at the beginning of the season, the second round, the third round. I mean, because we talked about in the season, like, I thought Eli would get 1. So it is interesting to get this far into it, and it's kind of come full circle. It went definitely south for a while, but it's come back around. But I'm very shocked that we have the very high possibility of ending this championship without a win.
Yeah, and also maybe winless for Yamaha in 450 MX as well, which would be a rarity, because Yamaha is, of course, across all disciplines, all classes, all sizes of bikes, everything that is competition. Yamaha are there, which means that there's a wide range of motorcycles for you to choose from, or even ATVs if you want to go that route. Yamaha Motor USA to equip your whole family for a day at the track or trail. Thank you to them for their support of this podcast. Shuffling down a little bit, RJ was very impressive. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. I don't know how you fix that, but the first moto especially was really quite good and quite something. So I feel like combine that with Ironman, and he deserves his dues quite significantly.
There's one big takeaway I have from the RJ situation. Well, 2. 1, I feel like this weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, so far we've been giving him a lot of props being on the 450, that he hasn't had RJ moments. Like, he has looked like a better 450 rider, very smooth, very in control. Especially when he was, I think it was first moto, when he was close to Eli. Like, I saw more intensity than I've seen out of him on a 450 outdoor so far. Like there were a few track was edgy, so that plays part to it. But I saw a couple RJ moments, which normally in the past I would be like, oh crap. I was actually kind of excited to see a little bit more of a push as he's gone more comfortable on the bike. He's willing to get back on the edge a little bit more. And then the second thing I was going to mention is this result. And I get it, you're coming, we're saying this against a Ferrandis that has just come back to racing, a Barcia that's had a decent rough year. But I look at like those guys, Malcolm Stewart, Jason Anderson isn't here, but I would say at the moment, like I look at this, like he'd probably be beating Jason. These guys that have held those, we always talk about those 32, 33-year-old guys that have just held these spots forever, and guys like RJ that have had to stay in the 250 class to earn a living and haven't moved up. I wonder how much this will start to change teams' opinions of like, okay, yeah, if we actually pick these guys and give them the opportunity, some of these guys are getting long in the tooth. Like these guys are capable of beating them, because it felt like there for a while no team wanted to take a shot on a 250 Supercross Top Container one that's barely squeaked it out, like kind of like your Colt and J Coop thing where they got him, but like still nobody was like that excited to stick them on 450s. And Justin Cooper got the opportunity, but like Colts was kind of squandered oddly. When you look at RJ's situation now, maybe gives a little more hope for these guys. Like, okay, we can start picking these guys again. They can do it. Like it comes to, I feel like these 250 guys have felt like they have to stay down till they just dominate to get a deal. And I look at this and go, okay, maybe this could be, even if, take Shimoda right now, take Kitchen. If they just sort of get a good two, even if they don't go out and rack up a couple titles, if they just get one or close to one, is there, ammo there to say like, hey, these guys still could go on a 450 and do quite well. They don't need to stay in the 250 class for 10 years. They can beat the guard that's getting ready to leave.
Yeah, I think RJ, when we look back in 5 years, I think we will look at RJ as blazing a trail of some sort, or bucking a trend, or whatever random phrase you want to use. Behind RJ was J Coop, who had a fairly anonymous day, helped in the second moto by a better start. First moto was a decent charge through the field, but still 6'4", I feel like J Coop is better than that. That's the bottom of what's deemed acceptable. Ferrandis was great once again, honestly. All the credit in the world to Ferrandis. I'm very impressed. And it kind of sucks, actually, that we were missing him all summer, because I think that everyone forgot just how competitive he can be. Malcolm has very much impressed me as well. He hasn't been around for interviews, but Malcolm, for a few weeks in a row now, he's coming from the back, he's passing guys, he's charging forwards. Like, I'm very impressed and had my eyes opened by Malcolm a little bit, so I want to give him his credit. And behind Malcolm was Justin Barcia, who is, I don't want to say going backwards, but he was pushing the top 5, and now we're at the lower half of the top 10. And truth be told, I feel like he's very much just riding out his time at Gas. And I don't think it's exactly the most productive scenario for going racing. So I don't know if he really sees much light at the end of the tunnel, outdoors-wise. Maybe SMX will be different, but it doesn't really seem like they're going to fix the pressing issues with the balance of the bike and whatnot outdoors.
Yeah. It is interesting seeing, Dylan come back and kind of superseding Barcia around that 5th, 6th mark, especially with them going to be teammates next year. I'm very curious to see how that balances out for those two, to see them both right now and see Dylan have the little bit of the upper hand. I'm sure for both of them, like Dylan likes his situation, so not as much, but I'm sure for Justin that Ducati life cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, and props to Barcia once again, because press day, when I interviewed him, he said, I haven't signed a contract yet, but everyone knows that my priority is signing for Ducati, and I should have an offer here or a contract here shortly. Like, it was very open in a way that we don't hear riders talk about their contracts, especially contracts they don't have. So I like that, and I want more of that in the sport. And in a similar note, Ken Roxon was very honest about his situation, straight up saying that he received his Suzuki offer this week, being the week before Unadilla, and saying that he expects himself to stay there because he's very happy at the team and also with his personal sponsors like Red Bull, which I felt was very interesting for him to single out Red Bull. I think that flied in the face of the Monster Energy Kawasaki rumors quite aggressively. I feel like there's no other reason to single out Red Bull like that, because what a random thing to point to.
No, I like Kenny that Kenny was open about that because I think me and you both confirmed. Like, I wouldn't say there wasn't an offer, but there was an inquiry where his contract status was. Because I think we've kind of forgot about Kenny for a little bit, with him not being around, but also we had heard during Supercross he was likely to stay. A little bit of that talking to the team came down to waiting for their extension with Suzuki. There was never like a worry of getting the extension with Suzuki, but it sounds like for everybody that kind of gives Suzuki a hard time for their support in U.S. racing. Part of this extension, from my understanding, is they up their support with the HEP team, parts, bikes, and financially, because Kenny, straight up from one team member, told me like this is a better deal for him. They've increased his deal. They did clarify though that this, I don't know the term length of what they offered him, but the only requirement in the contract sounds like it's Supercross. Of course, they'll default him also doing SMX, but no, he's not tied into the world team thing anymore. But cool to see, what kind of started as a last minute, kind of a courtesy test with that team to falling in love with the program and to building with them, to see them kind of reward each other, him reward them with loyalty and then reward him with building the program around him and being able to pull in more money and be able to support him better. Because, he took a huge pay cut at the time from where he was towards the peak of his career with Honda. He was going to have to no matter where he went because of the oddness of his situation at the time. But again, really cool to hear that from the team and just some of the openness there.
I would be curious, and maybe this will just be one of the great hypotheticals. But Roxon did say, obviously, things could change in his little speech.
Yep.
So, and as you said, there was certainly an inquiry from Kawasaki about like, hey, what's the situation here? I would have been curious if that went down the road or is going to go down the road. Would it have been Supercross only? Would they have said to Kenny, hey, you have to do outdoors? Like, I'm just curious how that would have gone, because Kenny certainly isn't doing all of the outdoors, but I can't imagine Kawasaki signing a Supercross only guy. But yeah, maybe it doesn't matter. Another one of life's great random questions.
I'll throw out my random theory. If they would have done it, I would suspect, and tell me if you agree with this, he would have done SX only, and they might have put because they already considered it for Anderson this outdoors. They just signed Marchbanks, maybe put Garrett on the 450 outdoors.
Yeah, or gone fishing in the MXGP pond, although that hasn't exactly gone too well so far. And speaking of which, just in front of Ken Roxon was Jorge Prado, who I'm not doing a whole speech on this. All I'm going to say is that after the Ironman progress, I really feel like the Unadilla backward step is the final nail in the coffin, because I think there was such positivity after Ironman, and from what I know, the testing that they did on Tuesday was again super positive, and the momentum was rolling, the vibe was high, the excitement was in the air. For that balloon to have been burst quite aggressively at Unadilla, I don't know how. Just looking at Jorge as an athlete emotionally, I don't know how you can then reinvest yourself in this getting better when it got better and it was a false alarm. Because this means that the next time it goes better, he's not going to be excited. He's going to subconsciously be going, well, last time this happened, it led nowhere, so who cares?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you pick yourself up after this. I'll go on record, and I don't know what this means for the future. I'm not saying anything in that regard, but I do believe this was the final nail in the coffin. A coffin, whatever that coffin defines.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I'm just blown away at, like you said, we saw that progress Ironman, and I was worried that it wouldn't carry over into Unadilla, regardless of conditions or anything. I was concerned that, okay, it may not carry that level, but to both motos. I mean, we've seen the riding around, per se, if you want to call it that. The biggest thing is even the best lap time usually is not this far off. What was he both motos? Almost 8 seconds his best lap off of Jett's. There was just no pace. There was just nothing positive other than, well, we got a whole shot, technically speaking.
That, I was quite excited about that because he seemed to want some in that first moto. He went for that whole shot. It wasn't like it just, I got a great start. He looked quite aggressive out of the gate and into turn one. And I was like, fucking hell, he really believes we're so back. Yeah. He wants this. And then he quickly didn't want this.
Yeah. I don't know. The toughest one, I'll say this, and this is, it's just the one thing that boggles me the most watching it. It's already been debated to death, but it is interesting because we've had all the engine comments this year, and I talked to the team a bit on Friday and asked them like what was the main cure. And there were some parts changes. The biggest one we came back to was transmission internal changes to basically change where he was at. 'Cause it sounds like he likes to stay in third gear a lot, and they basically went to what I would call like tighter or shorter ratios to bring third in tighter, so third didn't lug as much in the corners. It wasn't trying to come completely off the bottom per se. I don't know. So it seemed like we were in a positive direction in the engine. So I just look at it physically watching it. And again, I know he's not comfortable, but when I watch the bike, I'm like, no, again, I went back to her. Tomac's bike looks horrendous compared to Jorge's. Cody looks like he's going to die on a 3 times a lap basis compared to Jorge. So it's hard because I don't know how to die, like from a visual, trying to learn, just trying to grasp something by watching it. I don't know even what to say. I can't interpret what the problem is. And in talking to 2 guys on the team that I passed in the infield during the race, I kind of mentioned that, and that was kind of their point as well. Watching it, they're like, I can't tell you what's wrong. I can't see it. I don't know. I think that's the biggest thing is after last weekend, I can imagine just from the little bit guys around too, I just kind of a deflated feel like, yeah, where does anybody go from here? Where does Jorge go? Where does the team go? The rumors, the writing was on the wall after Ironman. It seemed to kind of close that door. I imagine that door has to be blown wide open where there's no way we come back from this.
Final nail in the coffin. I just wonder if Jorge's going to go grocery shopping this week and try to pick up some fresh fruit. Maybe even an orange or 2.
Yeah. Question for you. Like I saw Mathes's tweet about Jorge not being happy. He had heard that Jorge wasn't happy about his comments or something.
I wonder where that came from. I wonder where Steve found that out.
Well, I was going to joke say, so I mean, this weekend definitely shows his back because Jorge, even on weekends, I wouldn't think he'd want to talk. He would still do an interview with you. He did not want to talk this weekend. But in general, in talking to him at other rounds, what do you feel like his feeling is towards the fans, towards media, towards everybody's scrutiny of his situation? Like, has he given any feedback on that on a record or anything?
No, honestly, he doesn't read or look at anything. He genuinely is clueless. He said a couple of things to me. One was at Ironman. He said, why are you in the press so much here? And I was like, it's a whole American thing, Jorge. Don't worry about me. 2, he said, thank you for being hated so much. You're taking some of the heat off me. So that was it. And then 3, because I've said to him a few times, like, oh, have you seen, like, oh, I said this about you. Sorry. Or, oh, yeah, I said, and he's like, yeah, I don't watch or listen to anything. I don't need, like, he's always been like that. But he does find out, he must have someone who tells him certain snippets, because there's once in the 10 years I've known him, has he said to me, did you say this? But only once. And that wasn't this year. Yeah. So he really doesn't pay attention to anything. I think maybe more so nowadays, because maybe he finds an Instagram reel or something of the sorts, but he really, to be honest, he's kind of like, and I said this preseason and I stand by it, he's kind of like the true professional in the way that he doesn't care and he refuses to look at it. Yeah. And he doesn't go down that path and he doesn't know. I would bet 100% he knows Lewis. I guarantee he doesn't know who I work for. And if I told him I work for Vital MX, he'd go, what's that? I'm almost, maybe not, but I feel like he's that disconnected from the media side of the sport.
Which shockingly is unlike, we could joke about I've had riders come up to me and go, what the hell's wrong with YZ Rider 138 on your forum? And I'm like, oh my God, if you actually went that deep, I'm very concerned for you right now.
Well, maybe it's an MXGP thing because there's less media, so it's not really like something that's that pressing. I don't know. But no, he's honestly, I will go to my grave with this. Every single off-record conversation I've had with him this year, he's very much like blunt about his situation. Like, he hasn't tried to hide things from me. He hasn't tried to dress up the situation. He's just been like, yeah, you can see. Like, yeah, I don't like that. Oh, yeah, or I'll go, oh, what about this thing? Yeah, well, there's that and there's that. I wish I could do that. My gas did, like he's not, with me at least off record, he's not been like politically correct and like dancing around. He's just been very straight up and been like, yeah, I suck. Like, I know I didn't talk to him yesterday, but I know someone he did talk to. And from how that conversation was relayed to me, it was very much like he was just like, yeah, this is fucking stupid. Like it's not like he's going around portraying the like, yes, I will be winning here shortly. He is just like, yeah, fucking hell, this is a disaster. So I don't think he's yeah, I don't know. But what I can tell you, I don't know that, but what I do know is that 12th and 13th place have never looked so good because of Fox Racing dominating the 12 to 13 range with a rich heritage and deep racing DNA. Fox Racing has been at the forefront of motocross for 50 years. They empower the world's best athletes like Jorge Prado, Ken Roxon, there you go, the 12th and 13th, Levi Kitchen and Jo Shimoda to chase their dreams. With their gear, dreamers become champions. They honour the past while inventing tomorrow, pushing the limits of racewear and protection, because at Fox, change is the only constant. Let's move on to 250s, because we went quite long there. Truth be told, there isn't much to say here, other than well done, Jo Shimoda, because that was one heck of a performance. Another nod to Fox Racing there. That was just the best ride of Joe's career, I think, without doubt. Makes me excited about where this would lead next if he can continue to build on this. Makes me wonder about 250 SMX and is Hayden even the favourite? Makes me wonder a lot. But it all comes back to the same root, and that is Jo Shimoda absolutely killed it. So well done to Joe.
Particularly, I mean, both motos, but particularly first moto. His opening 3 laps especially was insane. And actually, Hayden's comment on the podium is one of the more few times, because he always, is playing a little bit of mental games with guys, but one of the few times I've heard him just come straight out and be like, kind of just gave Joe so much props. Just basically said, he said a couple, he would say something about his race and then say something positive about Joe and the pace, and just basically kind of said he had nothing for him in a sense, and not that he was off, but also how amazing he was. And I mean, I'm definitely stoked that Joe is going to be staying put, because yes, it's with Hayden exiting the class, with Tom going back to Europe and being done with his 250 career in general. I mean, with Levi having a fairly rough summer, like you look at Joe and it's anything can happen, things will change, but you get to next summer, you're like, he's got to be the favorite next summer, like bar none, right?
Well, okay, so we've seen some fairly dominant rides from Hymus. Compare peak Shimoda, which was Unadilla, to peak Hymus, which was whatever event you want to choose. Like I think Joe was a level above that.
Yes, Joe, don't get me wrong, some of Chance's performance have been really strong, but Joe's, Unadilla in general, but that first moto was, if you give me your best Chance performance, your best Joe performance, like the Joe one overshadows it a little bit there.
On the podium after the first moto, Hayden said that he broke his gears again, which I don't know what that means. Or he thought he broke his gears, or he nearly broke his gears, or I don't know what's going on with his gears. I don't know.
Just mashing transmission or whatever.
Again, he said those. I don't know when this happened before. I don't know if this is real. I don't know.
Maybe just during the week, or what happened to his bike the year that all the way back he had the bike failure here 2 years ago.
Oh, I don't know, but I doubt he was referencing that, but maybe.
Yeah. Probably just something more during the week, but Joe, not much to say 250 class. I'm definitely more like, okay, let me ask you this. Coming into the race, and I will say I had a different thought before the race and after the race on this. I thought coming into the race, for some reason in my head, I thought Hayden's title wrap-up was almost more likely than Jett's. And it's typical recency bias. Jett had come off 2 okay rounds. Like, okay, the point, especially his point spread, it's like, okay, he has to actually get points up where Hayden technically is locked coming in. He just has to maintain. But then when the day was over, I was kind of like, oh, why did I think that Jett? Of course, Jett's would be the more likely. Hayden has universally, even though he's had a good performance, Unadilla, he's also admitted Unadilla is one of his weakest rounds. And as generals, we've seen with Hayden, later part of the season is a little bit more up and down for him. So coming into the race, I thought Hayden's was more likely. And then when I exited, I'm like, I guess I should have known coming into it that Jett's was more likely to wrap, and we would go to Buds with Hayden's.
Well, I think that's just because Hayden mathematically was in a better position. Hayden could have swapped motos with Joe, whereas Jett couldn't do that with Hunter. So I think that was probably where those feelings were coming from. The hour was fairly anonymous, but the second moto was better than the first. Some good starts. I feel like we've not seen 2 great starts like that from Tom in a while. Hammaker was great as well. Let me ask you this. Hammaker really wants an overall podium outdoors. Tomac really wants a win this season. 1 round left. What's more likely? Hammaker gets his podium or Tomac gets his win? It's quite tough because I feel like they're both close, but like slightly unlikely.
I lean ever so slightly towards Eli just because the fact that I guess because Jett has his wrapped. 250s, there's just so much to play because I guess their part is 250s is you could say 450s, who's motivated? Eli's motivated. Jett's already done everything he can do it more this season. 250s, you could argue, okay, Hayden wants to win his last 250 national. Jo wants to keep the momentum going. Vial would love to win his last 250 motocross race and is, kind of cap out. He didn't ever win a motocross title here, but to wrap his story out here a little bit differently. I feel like there's more 250 guys that maybe, and then like I said, what Seth wants overall play. There's kind of just like more guys in the 250s I feel like that might push the limits in the final race, even though there's not a lot to play for.
I go the opposite way simply because a podium is easier than a win.
Yeah, than a win.
Fairly boring, but I'm stacking the odds in my favour. But we'll see. There we go. We've got something to follow. My biggest insight from insight with an emphasis on sight from Unadilla, Julien Beaumer. I handed him my microphone after the race, and he kind of like went to reach it and missed it. And he went, "Oh, sorry, I've taken my contacts out. I can't see." And I said, "Since when did you wear contacts?" And he went, "Oh, since Ironman. I had a test with the eye doctor after Redbud, and I was like, had horrific eyesight. I can barely see." So he's been racing. And he said to me in my interview, which makes a lot of sense, I said to him, so like, if you'd known this all along, he said he just presumed that like everyone was seeing things like this. So I said to him, like, if you'd had contacts all along, start of outdoors, Supercross, would things have been better? And he was like, I don't know, but I'd imagine being able to see the East Coast ruts would have helped in Supercross. And I was like, fucking hell, if that ends up being the whole thing of Juju and East Coast and stuff like that, the whole thing just comes down to needing contacts, then who knows? But also, if it comes back to that, stay tuned for that to be the new fad in the paddock where everyone's jostling for contacts, and then we have contact advancements. We have advancements like the starting blocks. Like, oh, so-and-so's got their contacts a little bit out of their eye this week, and then the whole thing. So we may have started something here. Stay tuned.
So instead of being in the pit lane looking at pit boards, you'll be at riders' rigs trying to figure out what contacts they have.
No, we'll have instead of a goggle lane in MXGP, we'll have a contact lens lane, which will be very meticulous and difficult to manage. But what is good is that Juju can now look across the KTM rig and see those decal works graphics shining, which must have been hard for him previously, but now he can really enjoy and embrace everything about how brilliant his KTM looks. And you can look at your bike with similar admiration if you head to decalmx.com and see all that they have to offer. But no, good job, genuinely good job to Juju. He rode very well. And as I said to him after the race, I think we are all guilty of forgetting that Fox, Hangtown, Thunder Valley, he was in these positions. So this isn't out of nowhere. This is just correcting course.
It is odd, though, because him and I'm not trying to dig too much, but a couple things that were shared to me after the race, because, of course, Juju and Ryder both had big rebound races at Unadilla, and I was kind of trying to wrap my head around. I'm like, okay, they train together. They're on a similar program. Like, what were some of the differences this week? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they both rode Supercross this week, correct?
Yep.
They both rode Supercross. We had a Unadilla that was drier, edgier, more like riding Paula during the week, very edgy, very dry, not very deep. So, okay, they've been on West Coast most of the year. They took a little stint at Baker's for riding. Kind of an odd one to dig into is I know so their trainer is Millsaps. I don't believe Davey was at the race, and then I'd heard that Julian's parents took the race. I think him and his dad kind of had a little bit of maybe a moment. Kind of funny to like, hey, jump on some SX back where we're comfortable, get some intensity, maybe just kind of refresh the brain. No, not in a bad way, but maybe just no stress from some of the overhead of the people telling you what you're screwing up, and I don't know, both of them just kind of have a reset of a weekend. I'm not saying that's the magic fix, but it's kind of funny that it worked out similar for both of them.
Juju said to me that he enjoyed this week so much that he has already said to KTM, from now on, meaning next year, because it's kind of irrelevant this year, in outdoors all through the year, every 2 weeks or so, he wants to do a day or two on Supercross just to change it up. Which, to be honest, he's not the first rider in the last 2 weeks who has said to me, "Oh, I'm so much happier now that I'm breaking up the outdoor training with some SMX. Oh, I feel so much more refreshed and happy, and like some. I think that could become a bit of a trend.
Wow,
like
you know, it's a funny
lenses.
one. Well, shocking. It's the other way around because you always hear guys do the same towards the end of Supercross. They're like, oh, I started riding outdoors once a week. It's great because, I mean, they both have their positives. A lot of guys jump on outdoors the first day and they realize how, you know, they don't dive deep into stuff. Like, because Supercross, you rely so much on roll speed. The first comment that goes, wow, outdoors is fast. Things come at you fast. You don't realize, you know, how much faster you can go into sections. Vice versa, you put them on Supercross and just a lot of, you know, natural intensity is in the way they ride it. So, yeah, you make the argument. You know, it's kind of funny because you think of the earlier days of Supercross in the U.S. and U.S. riders using it as a reason for, you know, why they maybe advanced ahead of GPs at the time is, oh, Supercross is good for these guys, the intensity, the technique. And then we've kind of come around to the opposite. We're like, oh, guys ride Supercross too much. It hurts them for outdoors. And how many riders tell me, you know, depending on their training program, what happens when they do a little bit of back and forth, like, wow, it's really nice to switch it up.
You mentioned Ryder D there. I was very impressed with him, but I was impressed with him at Ironman as well. And I have to say, I'm a Ryder D guy and I'm a Juju guy. I like that group. I'm a Ryder D. Chalk me up in the Ryder D and Juju camp. And not only because they both use Motorex.
I see me some West Coast boys. Please, I need West Coast guys to do
Not only because they both use Motorex. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean care and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. Moving down the list here, I have no idea what's going on with Kitchen. I have no idea. Other than the Kitchen has been reported to the Health and Safety Department. There's a rat infestation. It's been closed until further notice. No one knows.
I've asked multiple people around. Like, I've asked mechanics. I've asked like anybody I know that's kind of around his camp. Like, what's the deal? And nobody, you know, there isn't like also one guy's like, oh, he's been sick or injured. They're all just like, it's just not going good. There's no. I have yet to find any smoking gun, any comment, like just not going well. That's about the simple answer I've gone on everything with him.
I will be very interested to see how SMX goes and if it turns around there. That will be the telltale sign for me, let's say. Very impressed by Caden Dudney. Very, very impressed.
Yes.
Rider of the day, perhaps. That was brilliant. Superb. No comments other than 10 out of 10, I think, as far as debuts go.
Small note on his debut, it got publicized a little bit for people to know himself and Landon Gibson that both turned pro, unless there's one more pro this weekend that would be 16 that I'm not aware of. Dudney and Gibson would be the last two riders, at least with the current rule set we're going to have, that will be 16 years old when they turn pro. Anybody that turns pro next year has to be 17 and the year after has to be 18. So last two of the young crowd.
Masterpool actually impressed me in the first moto because he went backwards but then forwards. And when he went backwards, I was like, here we go, time off. It's going to fall apart. But he actually moved forwards again. So I was kind of impressed with that. I have no idea what happened to him in the second moto. Drew Adams was the fastest qualifier, and that's pretty much where his day ended because there wasn't much good after that. He went 18-12. Faulkner had maybe his worst day in some time. There just wasn't really anything there. Starts were meh, didn't make much progress, which is odd for him. And yeah, not much to it. But he and Jordan Smith both said that they made very positive steps with the bike and they're really excited. I don't know if it was the same for both, but it was something to do with the linkage for Jordan that made the bike stiffer and all of that stuff.
I know, so different linkage this week. How about, I mean, it's not much to know, but to skip over Jordan finally having two. He's had just for weeks, it feels like now, you know, an 8th, a 7th, a 6th in a moto, and just something go awry in the second moto. So to finally put together, you know, 2 motos in a weekend for Jordan was nice.
Are we at all surprised that Cole Davies went 23-23?
I mean, that was a little worse than expected, but again, the recency bias should go off his Supercross results, and I saw people commenting top five, top this, and it's like, okay, coming off a big injury, hasn't been on the bike much, has never raced outdoors, and I would say even though, he a later start in Supercross to come over to New Zealand, that just seems to have been his focus now for 2-3 years to get right here was to dive full headfirst into Supercross. And yeah, I kind of came into going, yeah, I think 50. I had to do it for fantasy. I think I had him averaged as like a 16th place guy. I really didn't expect much more for a couple different factors. Nothing against him, but I would have been truly shocked if we had better than a 13th or a 14th. But outside the top 20, a little worse than I expected.
Yeah, I'm not overly surprised, but I think that he certainly had higher expectations of himself. I should say, I think he had very high expectations of himself. So I think it was a bit of a shock to the system in that regard. And
how about any of just stars, comeback riders in general? Like, of course, we talk about Dudney having a great performance, but the ones that have come back from injury, Pierce's, first race was one done, and even before crashing wasn't going great. Dax has just been in no man's land, and then this with Cole, just we kind of heard about all these guys coming back. I mean, what we got, Mac is Mac still doing next weekend or no?
No, Charlotte.
Okay,
I don't know all these. Maybe slightly impacted by the way it's gone for everyone else, and realizing there is no need to do this.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is all these guys kind of rushing back, and it's like, okay, maybe just the entire group period just overestimated where they were at and what it was going to be like.
And then some updates. Jack Chambers broke his femur, so he's going to be out for some time. Mikkel Harrop broke his collarbone, but will be back for the Nations. And Michael Moseman, I'm not sure, but he was knocked out for sure and cut up his face quite horrifically.
Yeah, he had like an eye patch on and had gauze all over his face.
I think it was more of like a head patch.
Patch in general. And did you see the video of him trying to get up after he got knocked out?
Yeah, it's worrying as well because obviously we know that Moseman has had a lot of concussions and, obviously you don't want to ever see anyone knocked out, but Moseman's certainly one of the ones where you really, really don't want to see knocked out.
It remind me of what do they call it? A boxer that's what they call it punch drunk or whatever when they're just like they're trying to, their eyes are rolled back in their head, but they're still trying to stay in the fight. That was kind of the vibe I got watching him trying so hard to get up off the ground and stumbling around and rolling around. I was kind of freaked me out. You see a sight like that, and it's never good to see. Chambers was a bummer. I think his was after Screw You going into the step down double. I think that roller had a really bad kicker, and he high-sided off of it and did a femur. And then something happened to Schwartz. He got hauled off the exact, his crash was right after Chambers in the bottom somewhere. I think he's kind of had wrist issues for a couple of years, and I think he was holding his arm and wrist on the way out, and he DNF'd the second moto, so he got hauled off. So Schwartz is another one we need to get an update on.
Well, a lot of SMX chopping and changing there. We may be taking 10 from the LCQ at this rate.
Two questions for you. Brody Connolly, what you expected, not what you expected.
Oh, the start of that second moto, the start of the first moto was amazing and showed something. So that's... Yes, he got tired and whatever, but I guess that's to be expected. The first moto showed that the hype is somewhat justified and there is talent there to work with, so that's good.
I know when you talk to Reeve, I know the plan still sounds like hopefully, I think the plan is still to try to bring him here next year for Supercross, correct? Is kind of, I think that's
confirmed, to be honest.
So bring him over. I was impressed because, and not knocking him, if you're any, kind of B team in terms of outdoors performance, it is hard to get good starts. It's hard to run up there for some of those teams. And the quad lock team in general has had really good Supercross results, but it's kind of had a hard time putting a good getting a 250 in outdoors competitive. To see Connolly up there, to see their bike up there, all that together was really positive. Then the other point I was going to touch on the second one's got to be the Landon Gibson performance. Have we ever had a factory-ish, he's not a full factory contract, but in his case, show a factory rider make their pro debut and not even make the field in outdoors?
I gave this a lot of thought on Saturday because I think this is quite shocking and big news. And I was thinking how do you just burn him at the stake? Do you brush it off? I've decided the jury is out until Budds Creek because random things do happen. J-Mart didn't qualify for his first Supercross. You know, things do happen. Yeah. So if he comes out and qualifies 14th at Budds Creek, then quite clearly this was just a weirdo deal where the first race was all a bit too much and he needed to get used to it. But the proof will be in the Budds Creek pudding.
Question. So you said with Mickle, even though it's just because collarbones can be pretty quick, no chance at SMX.
No.
We're just straight into Destinations. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to Nations. I don't even know if he was going to do SMX anyway, to be honest. I meant to ask him that today, but I forgot. And he was also on meds.
Before this last weekend, I know when I asked Boss Man, not Scuba. Why am I going brain? Thank you, Coker.
Wow.
Coker, it seemed like that was I'm having a day. I'm tired. Coker seemed like that was, they were hoping to.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, the version I get from Mickle often differs from what people tell me Triumph say. So,
yeah.
I think a lot of ins and outs. But I think his intention was to try SMX, see how practice goes, and then make a decision. I don't think he was really that. But all the way back to Fox, he wasn't one of the guys who was like, "God, this is an opportunity." He was kind of like, "Yeah, I'll do SMX or I'll just do the last outdoor and then prep for the Nations." So I don't think it was exactly highlighted on his calendar like it is for Gio or someone else. But anyway, are we done?
One tiny one, SMX update. Who's on the outside looking at Shock still has to score himself. Guillot and Harrison are racing, so if Hill's not racing, Cody has to get himself 20. God, he's got to get 24 points at Budds, and Budds is one of his I think that's his best 450 career win. For me in 21. He needs that to overhaul Hill to get in. Otherwise, he will not seed in. Guillot's got that final seeded spot right now in 450s. And I feel like the 250s got a teetering point. Oh, Lux Turner. Lux had a career best this weekend overall in 11th in the moto. And same thing. He's just sitting on the outside looking in and talking to the team because you have RJ in 18th and Cole in 19th. And depending, we would imagine Cole would bounce back better or if Schwartz is hurt. But Turner is the one floating right on the outside looking in, but has a shot depending on Schwartz and Davies this next weekend.
Yeah, that will make Budds Creek exciting, especially the Coty thing, because I feel like 24 points is right on the verge of what he can do. Like it's essentially his ceiling and his obtainable ceiling, but by no means a given, but certainly not a surprise if he does it. So watch this space. It's a week of the U's. From Unadilla, the next podcast you will see on this network is the MXGP podcast show from Uddevalla. It's a week of the U's, and Uddevalla was a little more exciting than Unadilla, arguably the most exciting race of the year on either side of the Atlantic Ocean. So stay tuned for that, because for now, we are done with the Vital MX post-race show. Thank you once again to Decal Works, Yoshimura, Yamaha Motor USA, MotorX, and Fox Racing. I feel like I just repeated someone. But never mind, thank you to all of those companies for all that they do for us here at Vital MX. And thank you to you people for watching and listening. We will be back in 7 days' time to wrap up all that happened at the Pro Motocross finale at Budds Creek. So we will see you here real soon.